Good morning everyone. My name is Abhay Singh and I welcome you all in today's video analysis of The Hindu. Today is 9th of July 2024 and we'll start with the first news headline for the day. And the first news headline for the day is a sad and a tragic news headline that five army soldiers were martyred in militant ambush in Jammu and Kashmir. So five army soldiers were martyred in a militant ambush in Jammu and Kashmir. This is a sad event. This is a sad incident because to begin beginning from 9th of June 2024 when attack took place, when an attack took place on a bus, several people lost their lives. So exactly after 30 days another incident took place in Jammu and Kashmir in which five army soldiers have lost their lives in that particular incident. Now, moving on to the second important news headline for the day, and this is not the not a kind of headline which is comes rarely, but this is something which is going for the last 1.5 months. This is related to NEET undergraduate examination. Now, Supreme Court says cancellation of the NEET UGs entirely will be the extreme last resort. So basically, the Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, has given this statement that we are not in the mood to cancel the examination, but if we think that there has been some sort of discrepancy in the conducting of examination, then we will surely cancel the examination. And we will reconduct this particular examination. This was the statement given by Mr. Chandrachud. The fact that the sanctity of the examination is compromised is beyond questions. Before we order a retest, we have to know the extent of the leak. So basically, the retest of the NEET UG 2024 entirely depends on the extent of the leak which took place in the conducting of this particular examination. If the extent of the leak is huge, then there will be a retest. But if the leak took place at a very small scale, then there will be no retest. And why? The reason is because there were almost 23 lakh students involved in this particular examination. So conducting a retest is not a kind of solution that that NTA and the central government is looking for. They are basically looking for, they are basically prima facie they are looking for the एक्सटेंट जिससे ये पेपर लीक हुआ है. अगर ये पेपर ज़्यादा बड़े एक्सटेंट पे लीक हुआ होगा तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बोला हम लोग रीटेस्ट का ऑर्डर देंगे. बट अगर ये लीक जो है इसका एक्सटेंट बहुत बड़ा नहीं है, देन उसमें रीटेस्ट ऑर्डर करना उतना पॉसिबल नहीं होगा. ये थी आज की दूसरी न्यूज़. अब हम लोग मूव करेंगे आज की तीसरी न्यूज़ हेडलाइन पे. नाउ this is kind of important news headline because now there has been a leader of opposition in India after exactly 10 years. We are seeing a leader of opposition. In 2014 and 2019 there were no leader of opposition. Why there was no leader of opposition? Now we have to understand one thing for sure, that to be to become a leader of opposition, one party should secure a minimum of 10% seats in the Lok Sabha. So there are 543 seats and 10% is basically 54. So if a party is not scoring 54 seats, it cannot be a then it cannot claim to be a opposition in the parliament. But this time Congress has managed to secure 99 seats in the Lok Sabha elections. That's why Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who is the leader, who is the representative of Indian National Congress, he is going to be the leader of opposition. And Mr. Rahul Gandhi recently visited the state of Manipur, to look what happened in last 1 year. Now this is important news headline for us to understand. Now moving on to the next important aspect of today's newspaper. Next important aspect of today's newspaper, that is 9th of July 2024. Moving on to the next important aspect of today's newspaper. So these are all political news headlines. We don't have to linger on these headlines. We will keep on moving and we will see if something is important for our examination point of view, then we will definitely hear this particular news. Now this news is also very important. Nithari serial killing, Supreme Court to have please filed by CBI, Central Bureau of Investigation, against Kohli's acquittal. The Supreme Court on Monday agreed to hear pleas filed by the Central Bureau of Investigation. So the petition was filed by Central Bureau of Investigation challenging the Allahabad High Court verdict acquitting Surinder Kohli in the sensational 2006 Nithari serial killing case. So Allahabad High Court has acquitted the main accused in the Nithari incident, that is Surendra Kohli, and this particular acquittal has been challenged by Central Bureau of Investigation in the Supreme Court of India, and they basically they are challenging the acquittal. A bench of justices B.R. Gawai and K.V. Vishwanathan sought a response from Kohli on separate pleas filed by the CBI against the High Court's verdict dated October 16, 2023. The top court in May had agreed to hear a plea filed by the father of one of the victims challenging the order acquitting Kohli in the case. In this case, Moninder Singh Pandher was acquitted by the Sessions Court while Kohli was awarded death penalty on September 28, 2010. On Monday, the Supreme Court said that the pleas filed by the CBI would come up for hearing along with the petitions of the victim's father. So basically, what Supreme Court has done, that Supreme Court has clubbed the petition which is filed by the Central Bureau of Investigation against the acquittal of Surendra Kohli, and also the another petition which was filed by the victim's father. The Supreme Court has clubbed these two petitions, and the Supreme Court will hear these petitions together. Now, the judgment given by the trial court gave the judgment in 2010, and in that particular judgment, Mr. Surendra Kohli was awarded the death penalty, whereas High Court has reversed this particular verdict in the year 2023 and acquitted Mr. Surendra Kohli, who was the main accused in the Nithari case. In the Nithari case, now the petition was filed by the CBI and one of the victim's father. Supreme Court has clubbed all these petitions and it will hear the petition soon. Now moving on to the next important news headline for the day. And the next important news headline for the day. Ahead of talks with Putin, PM says will back peace in region. So basically, the stand of Prime Minister Narendra Modi is very clear. It's ahead of the talks with the President of Russia, Mr. Vladimir Putin. Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, has given a statement. In that particular statement, he said that we will back the peace in the region. Basically, he wants that the war between Russia and Ukraine should be pacified. There should be a normal, stable condition between these two countries. Moving on to the next important news headline for the day. So there was another car crash in Mumbai. There's a tragic car case in Mumbai in which a woman has lost her life in a tragic car accident, and the person who was driving that particular vehicle was under the influence of alcohol. So that's why this is another crash, and this is kind of a deja vu. This particular case is a kind of deja vu, which to the similar incident which took place in the month of May, when a Porsche car crash took place in the city of Pune, where one person caused one accident, where one minor caused the accident, and in that particular accident, two persons have lost their lives. So basically, this is a kind of similar incident which took place again in the state of Mumbai, and in this particular case, one person has lost her life, one woman has lost her life. Now, another important news headline for the day. So this news is important for us to cover. This particular news is related to the rights of the person who has been granted bail by the court. So basically, the Supreme Court on Monday held that requiring an accused to share his or her Google location pin with investigating officer to facilitate tracking of movement is a violation of the right to privacy. So basically, what Supreme Court has said that you cannot ask a person who is released on bail to share his Google location pin with investigating officer all the time, because this particular action is in itself is a violation of right to privacy. So in India, we have recognized privacy as a fundamental right. Privacy was recognized as a fundamental right in a very famous and a landmark judgment of Puttaswamy judgment. It was related to right to privacy. In that particular judgment, Supreme Court has clearly stated that privacy is a fundamental right of a person. So now there is a demand by one of the investigating officers that he wanted that the person who was released on bail, he should share his Google location all the time with the investigating officer. Now Supreme Court has clearly stated that one cannot ask the person released on bail to share his or her Google location all the time, because this is a clear violation of the fundamental right, that is right to privacy. Now another important thing that we have to understand that getting the bail is in itself a right. Getting bail in itself is a right. You cannot grant, you cannot ask someone that if we are giving you this particular right, then we will definitely take this particular right of yours. If we are giving you bail, then we will definitely violate your right to privacy. आप किसी से ऐसा नहीं कह सकते कि जो बेल, जो कि ऑलरेडी एक राइट है, जो एक अरेस्टेड पर्सन का ऑलरेडी एक राइट होता है बेल मिलना, अगर आप किसी इंसान को बेल दे रहे हैं तो आप उससे ये नहीं कह सकते कि मैं आपको अगर आपका एक राइट एक्सरसाइज करने दे रहा हूं तो मैं आपका दूसरा राइट वॉलेट कर सकता हूं. दिस इज द बेसिक थिंग दैट वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड एंड वी हैव टू बी वेरी मेटिकुलस इन दिस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक. बिकॉज व्हाई? Because this is related to the accused person. This is related to the accused person, and sometimes it happened that the person is still accused, he is not proven guilty, and in India everybody is innocent until proven guilty. Then why these kinds of harsh conditions are imposed upon the person, that you have to share your Google location? Although Supreme Court has clearly denied for this particular proposition, but again we have to understand one thing. Are this investigating officer are not sensitive or aware about these kind of things? Because these kind of things are clearly available in the market, and everybody knows that asking someone to share his Google location is violation of his right to privacy. So these are the things we have to understand. Now, a bench of justices A.S. Oka and Ujjal Bhawan said a condition for bail should not defeat the very purpose of grant of bail. There cannot be a bail condition defeating the purpose of bail. We have said Google pin cannot be a condition. The police cannot peep into the privacy of peep into the private life of an accused. So basically this was this basically becomes a very this becomes very important for us to understand that a condition for bail should not defeat the very purpose of grant of bail. So why bail is given to a person? So that he can enjoy, the various kind of things like which like various fundamental rights. And when the bail is granted to that particular person, now while granting the bail you cannot ask the person to share your Google location. Then then what kind of giving what kind of bail is this? That even if you are giving the bail का मतलब है कि आप बाहर से, जेल से बाहर निकल के अपनी आज़ादी को इंजॉय कर सकते हैं. बट आपने सामने वाले से क्या कह दिया कि हमने आपको बेल तो दे दी है, चलिए ये बात एकदम ठीक है, वी हैव गिवन यू द बेल, वी हैव ग्रांटेड यू द बेल, बट अब आपको आपकी गूगल लोकेशन हमारे साथ 24 घंटे शेयर करनी होगी, आप कहाँ आ रहे हैं, कहाँ जा रहे हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं. So basically these are the things which violates the right to privacy, and Supreme Court has clearly stated that the investigating officer cannot ask for the Google location of the person who was released or who is released on the bail. अब सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने क्लियरली बोल दिया है कि इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग ऑफिसर किसी भी पर्सन से जिससे बेल मिली है उससे उसका गूगल लोकेशन डिमांड नहीं कर सकता है, क्योंकि ये उसके फंडामेंटल राइट्स का वॉयलेशन है. राइट टू प्रिवेसी को सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने राइट टू प्रिवेसी को एक फंडामेंटल राइट डिक्लेयर कर दिया था के एस पुत्तास्वामी के जजमेंट में. नाउ मूविंग ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट ऑफ दिस न्यूज़पेपर. सो हेमंत सोरेन विन ट्रस्ट वोट inducts 11 minister into Jharkhand cabinet. So this is just a passing news headline, so we'll cover it. That Hemant Soren, who was recently released on bail by the court, he has taken oath as the chief minister of Jharkhand, and he has secured the trust vote as well, and he has inducted 11 minister into the Jharkhand cabinet now. And now look at these news. These are the simultaneous news. ये अगल बगल में ये न्यूज है. These news are besides each other. These news items are besides each other. That ED moves Supreme Court against grant of bail to Jharkhand Chief Minister. Hemant Soren wins trust vote, inducts 11 ministers into Jharkhand cabinet. So although Hemant Soren has sworn in as the Chief Minister of Jharkhand, but Enforcement Directorate has went to the Supreme Court against the bail of given to the Jharkhand Chief Minister Mr. Hemant Soren. Now next important news headline for the day, that Sharad Pawar's party gets EC not to accept donations from the public. So the Election Commission of India had given permission to the Sharad Pawar's party, Nationalist Congress Party, Sharad Chand Pawar faction. So basically NCP was split in two wings. So one wing which was with Sharad Pawar. Now this particular wing has got the approval of Election Commission of India that it can accept public donations ahead of the assembly elections in Maharashtra. So ahead of the assembly elections in Maharashtra, Election Commission of India has given permission to Nationalist Congress Party Sharad Pawar faction to accept donations from the public. Now this particular image, we just look closely into this particular image. Just look very closely into this particular image. So basically, this image is from a military exercise named Madri. Now Mach 3 2024 is a military exercise. Mach 3 2024 is a military exercise. Is a military exercise between Indian Army and Royal Thailand Army. And this particular exercise is taking place in Thailand. So basically this news item is also important for us. That's exercise Mach 3 2024, which is a kind of military exercise between Indian Army and Royal Thai Army is taking place in Thailand. So moving on to the next important news headline for the day. Next important news headline for the day is Center set to tweak criteria for according classical language status. So tweak, what is the meaning of tweak? So the meaning of tweak is to change or to twist. So central government is changing center is thinking to change the criteria for according the status of a classical language to any language. So basically, central government is trying to change the criteria for according the status of a classical language to any particular language. Now moving on to the tweak का मतलब याद रखिएगा, tweak means to change. Tweak means to change. Now amid demand for classical language status, the Union government has decided to tweak the criteria for giving the special tag. The Linguistic Expert Committee of the Cultural Ministry had submitted a report on October 10 last year suggesting changes. Sources in the ministry told The Hindu. So basically, last year, Union government has formed a committee for for suggesting methods. Excuse me. Yeah, sorry. Moving on to the next important headline. So this is basically regarding the changing of the rules related to the according the status of a classical language to any language. So the sources said that Center had asked the panel to reconsider the rule. The issue was taken up first at a meeting on June 21, 2023. A gazette notification of the new criteria will be issued after cabinet approval. So the committee has submitted its report. The Linguistic Expert Committee had already submitted its report to the Cultural Ministry last year. Now this particular the step will be taken by the Union government after considering the report, and when this particular suggestions will get the Union approval. Now the issue why this particular issue all started. This in effect means that the classical language status for certain languages, chiefly Marathi, which is under consideration of the government, may have to wait for the notification. Over the years, some states and literary circles have been demanding classical status for languages such as Marathi, Bengali, Assamese, and Maithili. So basically, there is a demand from the Maratha community that the Marathi language should be given the classical language status. And the central government has formed a linguistic expert committee under the Cultural Ministry last year. That particular ministry had submitted its report already to the Union Ministry, but these recommendations are yet to be notified. So if these recommendations are not notified, then there is no benefit of then there is no point of having all these discussions, because if union government is not approving these recommendations, then languages has to wait for the classical language status. Now what are the benefits that are being given if a language is declared as a classical language? So benefits are important for us to understand. Now what are the benefits that if that will be that will be encashed by a specific language if it is given a classical language status? So we'll start. Once a language is notified as a classical language, so once a language is notified as a classical language, the education ministry helps in promoting it. So basically the first benefited that the education ministry will promote the language. This is the first benefit, that the education ministry will promote the language. The second benefit which includes instituting two major annual international awards. institution of two major international awards. Now, two major journal international awards. Apart from this, a center of excellence for studies in that language is to be set up. Suppose if a language, for example, Marathi has been given, a classical language status, then an institute of excellence will be also set up. Institute of excellence will be also set up, and also it will ask central universities and UGC to create certain chairs in universities. So these are the benefits which are enjoyed by a language if it gets a classical language status. So the only important thing that we have to keep in our mind that last year central government has formed a committee, linguistic expert committee under the Ministry of Culture. That particular ministry has submitted its report in October last month. In last year October 2023, that particular committee has submitted its report. These reports are yet to be considered by the union government, and once the union government considers the recommendations of the this particular linguistic expert committee, the rules will be changed, and the classical language status will be accorded to different languages, and what are the benefits which will be enjoyed by that specific languages once it accorded the status of classical language. So education ministry will promote that specific language, education ministry will promote that specific language. Two major annual international awards will be constituted. Center for excellence will be center for excellence for that particular subject will be set up by the UGC, and also there will be certain number of chairs which will be created in various central universities. So these are the benefits which will be enjoyed by this that specific language. This was the only important aspect in this particular news item. Now moving on to the next important news item for the day. Now, so basically, this is related to National Quantum Mission. National Quantum Mission. Now, what is National Quantum Mission? So, National Quantum Mission was launched in the year 2023. National Quantum Mission was launched in 2023 with the budget of rupees 6,000 crore. It has a target to develop quantum computers. Excuse me. Excuse me. So National Quantum Mission was launched in the year 2023 with a budget of rupees 6,000 crore. The time frame for National Quantum Mission was 2023 to 2031. The main objective of National Quantum Mission, is to make quantum computers, with the speed of 52,000 qubits. So this was the main thing about National Quantum Mission. It was launched in the year 2023. It has a total budget of rupees 6,000 crore. The main target was to develop quantum computer of 52,000 qubits. Now, let's look at some a few things about the lab grown diamonds. So now, lab grown diamonds are man made diamond or artificial diamonds. So there are two techniques to develop lab grown diamonds: high pressure HPST, high pressure high temperature technology, and there is another carbon, I guess, uh, there's two technologies. One is that high pressure, high pressure, high temperature technology, and another one is this vaporization technology, in which one seed of a diamond is placed in the chamber, and there are a lot of gases which get evaporized and stick to that particular seed of diamond, and they form a new diamond. So these are the two techniques of growing diamonds. Which country is the largest producer of diamond in the world? So as of now, Russia is the largest producer of a diamond in the world. Now in India, Surat is a kind of diamond hub. Surat is a kind of diamond hub. Why we call it as a diamond hub? Because वर्ल्ड में जितने भी डायमंड्स कट और पॉलिश होते हैं उसका 90% शेयर जो है वो सूरत के पास है. सूरत 90% वर्ल्ड के डायमंड्स को कट और पॉलिश करता है. लैब ग्रोन डायमंड्स क्या होते हैं? मैन मेड डायमंड्स होते हैं. दो टेक्निक होती है ग्रो करने की. हम लोग डायमंड के एक छोटे पार्टिकल को एज ए सीड यूज करते हैं. और सबसे अच्छी बात क्या, व्हाट इज द बेस्ट थिंग अबाउट लैब ग्रोन डायमंड्स, के इन्हें हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं? ब्लड फ्री डायमंड बोलते हैं हम लोग. वी कॉल देम एज ब्लड फ्री डायमंड. एंड वाई वी कॉल देम एज ब्लड फ्री डायमंड? बिकॉज इन्हें एक्सट्रैक्ट करने में किसी भी तरीके का हमें हार्डवर्क नहीं करना पड़ता है. दीज आर ग्रोन इन द लैब्स. और जो नेचुरल डायमंड्स होते हैं वो माइंस में ग्रो होते हैं, माइंस में वो निकलते हैं. और फिर वहाँ पे क्या होता है? माइंस में वर्कर्स काम करते हैं और उनका बहुत ज़्यादा एक्सप्लॉयटेशन होता है. दैट्स वाई लैब ग्रोन डायमंड्स आर नोन एज blood free diamond. Now moving on to the next important news headline for the day, and next important news headline for the day is yeah. So this is an important news headline for the day. This is important for us to understand. Indigenous human papilloma virus vaccine, the rhetoric and the reality. So there were a lot of celebration when we developed when India developed first of its indigenous cervical cancer vaccine, that is known as Ceravac. Now, India's public health sphere was subject recently to one-sided discourse on how vaccination against the human papilloma virus prevents cervical cancer and consequent death. Interestingly, it is not proven beyond doubt that HPV, human papilloma virus, causes cervical cancer, as only a couple of strains out of 200 strains that infect humans are somehow associated with precancerous lesions. Most of the women who die of cervical cancer are HPV positive. So one thing is proven, that human papilloma virus is the main human papilloma virus is the main cause of the cervical cancer, because most of the women who die of cervical cancer are positive of HPV, human papilloma virus. So we can relate these two things, that human papilloma virus causes cervical cancer, but most of the men and women who are HPV positive do not get virus induced cancer, let alone die due to it. So basically there are many persons who are HPV positive, but they do not have so they do not have cancer. But most of the women who die of the cervical cancer are HPV positive. So one thing is clear, that cancer and human papilloma virus, cervical cancer and human papilloma virus are correlated. Now why we are studying this particular news headline for today? Because a few months back India has launched its first indigenous vaccine, which is known as Ceravac. Now we will directly move into this particular article, intricacies in this particular article. Now, the path of vaccine manufacture. Now, moving on. But this article focuses on the questionable timing, promotion, and pricing of indigenous human papilloma virus vaccine, assuming some high-risk population needed it. So basically, recently, the vaccine manufacturer in India, Serum Institute of India, Pune, launched the vaccine for cervical cancer, and the name of this particular vaccine was Ceravac. So Ceravac was recently launched by Serum Institute of India, Pune. Now, the Serum Institute of India developed Ceravac and promoted it as an indigenous and affordable vaccine. It is pertinent to ask why it took nearly 2 decades for the indigenous vaccine after the introduction of a patented HPV vaccines in the United States, Australia, and elsewhere in the global north. So basically, we have to closely understand one thing, that first HPV vaccine was launched 20 years 20 years before the launch of Ceravac. So why India took exactly 20 years to develop a vaccine? CeraVac. Why India took 20 years to develop a vaccine for human papilloma virus and cervical cancer? Why we took exactly 20 years, whereas the first vaccine, first patented vaccine, was developed 20 years ago in the United States of America and some else parts of the global north. So CeraVac uses similar techniques deploying viruses like particles, VLPs, virus-like particles. So some vaccines are virus-based vaccines producing using recombinant deoxyribose nucleic acid technique to generate an immune response against HPV infection. So basically these were virus-based vaccines. They develop some resilience, some resistance towards the infection. The vaccine against cervical cancer is only the second rDNA vaccine in the world using the techniques of the early 1917, the first being the vaccine against the hepatitis B. So basically the vaccine for the HPV infections, human papilloma virus infection, is only the second vaccine in the history of the vaccines which has been developed using rDNA vaccine. So the first vaccine in the world which was developed using rDNA vaccine was vaccine for hepatitis B. Hepatitis B का जो vaccine सबसे पहले बनाया गया था, this was the first vaccine in the world जिसे हमने डेवलप किया था rDNA टेक्निक का यूज करके. और सेकेंड वैक्सीन कौन सी थी? पहली तो हेपेटाइटिस बी की हो गई और सेकेंड कौन सी थी? ह्यूमन पैपिलोमा वायरस के लिए. सो बेसिकली अब ये सारी चीजें थी. अब सीन में चेंज कब से आया, ये सिनेरियो चेंज कब हुआ? सो सिनेरियो चेंज हुआ 1980s में जब यूएस गवर्नमेंट ने एक पेटेंट एक्ट पास किया. अब वो क्या था? द होल सिनेरियो चेंज विद द अमेंडमेंट ऑफ द यूएस पेटेंट एक्ट इन द 1980s, allowing the patenting of genetically modified organisms and life processes and the introduction of Bayh-Dole Act to legalize publicly funded scientists setting up companies. So basically there were a lot of changes in 1980s in the United States of America. Now what United States of America has amended its patent act in 1980s, and it allowed the companies to get the patent for the medicines and the genetically modified organisms, and also it allowed the various doctors and publicly funded scientists to set up their own companies. Now this particular thing which was known as scientists setting up their own hospitals and companies, it was done by the virtue of Bayh-Dole Act. So by virtue of Bayh-Dole Act, the scientists in United States of America were allowed to establish their own companies, where the amendment in the 1980s in the US Patent Act allowed companies to get the patent for genetically modified organism and life processes. So this was the huge amendment which was brought in the year 1980s. These two amendments one amendment enabled the companies to get the patent of genetically modified organism, whereas another act which is known as Bayh-Dole Act, it legalizes the scientists to develop their own or to set up their own companies. This was the major change in the United States of America. Now moving on. With the eventual globalization of US patent laws to the World Trade Organization Agreement on Trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights since 1995, vaccine development and innovation changed drastically. So basically, World Trade Organization and this TRIPS agreement has popularized the idea of has done the marketing for the यूएस पेटेंट लॉ. यूएस का जो पेटेंट लॉ था उसकी मार्केटिंग की वर्ल्ड ट्रेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ने और ट्रिप्स से मिलकर के. इस वजह से क्या हुआ कि पूरे वर्ल्ड में ऑलमोस्ट ऐसे कुछ सिमिलर डॉक्यूमेंट्स को अडॉप्ट किया गया. वैक्सीनेशन इनोवेशन अंडरवेंट सिग्निफिकेंट चेंजेस इन टर्म्स ऑफ इट्स ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, पेटेंटिंग स्ट्रेटजीज एंड इवन डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन प्रैक्टिसेस इन academia and industry. An important element of this value addition is legalization of the conversion of public research into private development and its monopolization by patenting. So basically what way was adopted, that these important value addition which was done by the various institute. Now these were this public research was converted into private development by patenting. Now a lot of research is conducted before developing of any particular vaccine. Now so a company will pop up out of nowhere. It will observe each and everything, and it will get a patent on its own name. So these are the things that we have to understand. Now the most important thing that we have to understand is that the patent is awarded for exactly 20 years. The patent is adopted exactly for 20 years. And what is the impact of these kind of things on India, which is also very important. Now in India we have a patent act in 1970 which is known as India Patent Act 1970. So this particular, the main drawback of this particular patent act was that this particular patent act, India Patent Act 1970, इस patent act के अंडर हमने कभी किसी प्रोडक्ट को पेटेंट नहीं दिया, हम हमेशा से प्रोसेस को पेटेंट देते थे। सपोज करिए कि आप मैगी 2 मिनट में बना लेते हैं, सो जो 2 मिनट में मैगी बन के तैयार होती है, जो इंडिया का पेटेंट एक्ट था उस पर्टिकुलर जो 2 मिनट में मैगी बन के तैयार हो रही है उसको पेटेंट नहीं देता था। आपने जो कैसे 2 मिनट में मैगी बनाई है, जो प्रोसेस है आपका 2 मिनट का, इंडियन पेटेंट एक्ट सिर्फ उस एस्पेक्ट को पेटेंट देता था। हम फाइनलाइज या जो फिनिश्ड प्रोडक्ट होता था हम उसको पेटेंट नहीं देते थे। नाउ earlier the Indian Patent Act 1970 abolished patenting products and allowed only processes, that to excluding agricultural and biological patents. सो बेसिकली हमारा जो पेटेंट एक्ट था इसका स्कोप बहुत लिमिटेड था, हम प्रोडक्ट को पेटेंट देते नहीं थे, सिर्फ प्रोसेसेस को पेटेंट देते थे, और वो भी कोई अगर बायोलॉजिकल और एग्रीकल्चरल पेटेंट होता था उसको हम कंसीडर ही नहीं करते थे। दीज आर द ड्रॉबैक्स ऑफ इंडियन पेटेंट एक्ट 1970. This enabled the growth of domestic industries to become the pharmacy of the world within 2 decades. They manufactured low-cost generic drugs and vaccines, often within a couple of years after they were introduced in the global market. The first RDNA vaccine produced in India for hepatitis B not only entered the market within the 5 years under the process patent, but also dropped the price to an order of magnitude cheaper than the global norm. On the other hand, under the current product patent regime, a locally made DNA vaccine against cervical cancer had to wait for 20 decades till the expiry of the product's patent before its indigenous generic version was made available. So before, what used to happen that in India we had Indian Patent Act 1970. अब क्या होता था कि हम किस चीज़ पे पेटेंट देते थे? प्रोसेस पे। हम कभी प्रोडक्ट पे पेटेंट ही नहीं देते थे। सो क्या होने लगा कि लोगों ने प्रोडक्ट को डिकोड करना स्टार्ट कर दिया, और उन्होंने क्या किया, प्रोडक्ट को डिकोड करके उन्होंने सिमिलर प्रोडक्ट्स बनाने स्टार्ट कर दिए। सपोज एक इसका एग्जांपल क्या है, जेनेरिक मेडिसिन। अब क्या होता था, जब आपने प्रोसेस पे पेटेंट दिया, आपने प्रोडक्ट पे तो पेटेंट दिया नहीं है। सो क्या होता था कि इंडियन कंपनीज क्या करती थी, जो बाहर में मेडिसिन डेवलप करने में 20 साल 25 साल का टाइम लग रहा है, वंस द वैक्सीन वाज रेडी, प्रोडक्ट जब रेडी हो जाता था, सो प्रोसेस पे पेटेंट था ना, प्रोडक्ट पे पेटेंट तो था नहीं, तो लोग रिवर्स इंजीनियरिंग का यूज करके चीजों को बहुत ईजिली मार्केट में लॉन्च कर देते थे। ठीक है, सो दिस वाज द मेन ड्रॉबैक। फिर क्या हुआ, जब ये प्रोडक्ट जब प्रोसेस बेस्ड पेटेंट से रिजीम शिफ्ट हुआ प्रोडक्ट बेस्ड पेटेंट की तरफ, तब क्या हुआ कि प्रोडक्ट पे ही पेटेंट मिलने लगा, प्रोडक्ट का ही पेटेंट आपको मिलने लगा। फिर क्या हुआ कि इंडियन कंपनीज को मिनिमम 2 डिकेड्स का वेट करना पड़ता था। क्यों? क्योंकि जो प्रोडक्ट पेटेंट मिलता है वो 2 डिकेड्स के लिए मिलता है। सो अभी जो टाइम लग रहा था 2 से 4 साल में हम अपना वैक्सीन, अपना दवाई बना के तैयार कर देते थे, अब इंडियन कंपनीज को मिनिमम 20 ईयर्स का वेट करना पड़ता था। क्यों? क्योंकि अब तो भैया प्रोडक्ट पे ही पेटेंट आ गया है, अब प्रोडक्ट पे ही पेटेंट आ गया। पहले प्रोसेस पे पेटेंट था तो आप प्रोडक्ट का रिवर्स इंजीनियरिंग यूज करके वैसा सिमिलर प्रोडक्ट आप क्रिएट कर देते थे, बट अब तो प्रोडक्ट पे भी पेटेंट आ गया। सो अब आप ये सारी चीजें नहीं कर सकते, इसीलिए अब क्या होता है कि जो पेटेंट इशू किया जाता है वो 2 डिकेड्स के लिए इशू किया जाता है। तो जब तक वो प्रोडक्ट पेटेंट एक्सपायर नहीं होगा तब तक दोबारा से फ्रेश, जब तक वो पेटेंट एक्सपायर नहीं होगा तब तक आप रिवर्स इंजीनियरिंग करके चीजों को डेवलप नहीं कर सकते हैं। Now moving on to the next important aspect of this particular news headline. While multinational patent monopolies largely explain the delay in developing a local vaccine, what still remains explained is to exorbitant current market price of Ceravac. सो बेसिकली क्या हुआ कि अब जब प्रोडक्ट पे पेटेंट मिलने लगा ना, तो बहुत सारी कंपनीज ऐसी थी जिनकी मोनोपोली क्रिएट हो गई मार्केट में। मोनोपोली कैसे क्रिएट हो गई? क्योंकि पेटेंट मिलता था 20 ईयर्स तक के लिए। 20 ईयर्स तक आपको पता है कि वैसा कोई सिमिलर प्रोडक्ट डेवलप नहीं किया जाएगा मार्केट में, तो इससे क्या होता था कि कंपनीज की मोनोपोली स्टैब्लिश होने लगी। अब एक छोटा सा एग्जाम्पल ले, जो अभी सेरावैक वैक्सीन इंडिया में लॉन्च हुई है, जो ये इंडिजिनियसली डेवलप्ड सर्वाइकल कैंसर की वैक्सीन है, इसका प्राइस पता है आप लोगों को कितना है? 500 रुपीज फॉर 2 डोसेज। ये 2 डोज का प्राइस है 500 रुपीज। और इसके पहले जो इंडिया में वैक्सीन थी, एक वैक्सीन का नाम था, एक वैक्सीन का नाम था गार्डसिल एंड सर्वेरिक्स। इन 2 वैक्सीन का प्राइस कितना था? 4000। So basically this is the difference that a locally manufactured vaccine is available at 500 rupees, and whereas the internationally manufactured vaccine is available at a 4000 rupees. That's why these things are very important, and we have to understand that sometimes giving patents to the product is important, but we also have to understand that some areas are very sensitive, because everybody cannot afford a vaccine of 4,000 rupees, but there are many Indians who can afford a vaccine of 200 rupees. So these are the things that we have to understand now. So these are the things that the Sarawak vaccine is currently recommended universally under the government vaccination program for girls between the age of 9 to 26 years at a price of rupees 500 for two doses, which is expensive even for the government. For those millions are left out of the government coverage, the retail price for a Sarawak will shoot up to 4 to rupees 2,000 in a country that has low insurance penetration and catastrophically huge out of pocket health expenditure. So basically जो ये सेरावेक वैक्सीन है सर्वाइकल कैंसर के लिए वुमेन के लिए, ये जो 9 to 26 के एज ग्रुप के लोग होंगे, प्लीज राइट डाउन, प्लीज फोकस, सेरावेक वैक्सीन जो है आपका, ये 9 to 26 के बीच की जो गर्ल्स होंगी उनके लिए ये वैक्सीन बनाया गया। किसने बनाया? सीरम इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंडिया ने। इसका प्राइस कितना होगा? अगर गवर्नमेंट के जो यूनिवर्सल इम्यूनाइजेशन प्रोग्राम है, गवर्नमेंट का जो इम्यूनाइजेशन प्रोग्राम है उसके अंडर इस वैक्सीन का प्राइस है 500 रुपीज फॉर टू डोसेज। और अगर आप प्राइवेट स्फेयर में जाकर के इस वैक्सीन को खरीदना चाहेंगे तो अभी भी इसका प्राइस 2,000 रुपीज है। सो वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड कि फिर ऐसा स्पेशल हुआ क्या कि अभी भी प्राइस 2,000 रुपीज अवेलेबल है, जबकि दिस इज नाउ इंडिजिनियसली मैन्युफैक्चर्ड वैक्सीन। So these are the various important aspects of patent laws in India, and patent laws specifically related to the medical sector in India. So right now we have covered two important things. One was US Patent Act, another was India Patent Act. How things are different in United States of America and India. We have covered all those things. Now moving on to the next important news headline for the day. And next important news headline for the day. Double health budget, reduce out of pocket spends, while 13.4% of rural and 8.5% of urban household borrowed money to medical bills. Bill rest sought access to free public care and denied themselves health care or availed affordable substandard care. So budget is due, and we have to focus on health infrastructure as well, because we can't afford to have a poor poor health infrastructure if we are a developing economy, and if we are developing at a 7 to 8% per annum, then we cannot afford to be a weak economy. Now moving on to the next important news headline for the day. Xi calls on world powers to help Russia, Ukraine resume direct talks. So Mr. Xi Jinping, the president of China, has requested the world to help Russia and Ukraine to resume the direct dialogue between these two countries. How the direct dialogue can be resumed between these two countries and the impact of this dialogue, and we have to end this particular war between Russia and Ukraine as quickly as possible. नाउ अब फ्रांस में एक दिक्कत आ गई है। फ्रांस में दिक्कत क्या आ गई है? एज वहां पे फ्रांस में दिक्कत ये आ गई कि किसी भी सिंगल पार्टी ने मेजोरिटी सिक्योर नहीं की है। किसी भी सिंगल पार्टी के पास मेजोरिटी नहीं है। 577 सीट्स पे इलेक्शन हुए थे, 289 सीट्स चाहिए थे मेजोरिटी के लिए, और मैक्सिमम जो सीट्स मिली हैं वो 182 मिली हैं, और वो भी मिली किसको? न्यू पॉपुलर फ्रंट लेफ्ट अलायंस लेड बाय जीन लुक मेलेंकॉन। सो इनकी पार्टी को मिले हैं टोटल 182 सीट्स, 279 सीट्स चाहिए थी जो किसी को नहीं मिले। अब जो अर्जेंटीना के नए प्रेसिडेंट थे जेवियर मिलाई, इनके जो इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म्स इन्होंने सजेस्ट किए थे, उन्होंने वो किक स्टार्ट हो गए अर्जेंटीना में। उनके सारे जो रिफॉर्म सजेस्ट किए गए थे वो किक स्टार्ट कर दिए गए। अनलेस सी द इम्पैक्ट, इसका इम्पैक्ट क्या होता है। अब वी आर मूविंग इनटू द स्पोर्ट्स सेक्शन। विंबलडन चल रहा है, अभी विंबलडन चल रहा है। सो विंबलडन में अभी एज सच कोई इंपॉर्टेंट न्यूज़ नहीं आया है, कोई बड़ा अपसाइड डाउन हुआ नहीं है, कोई बड़ा इवेंट हुआ नहीं है। सो अभी हम इसके लिए हम लोग इसको स्किप करेंगे। अगर कोई इंपॉर्टेंट उलट फेयर होता है जिसको अप एंड डाउन बोलते हैं हम लोग, तो हम लोग जरूर डिस्कस करेंगे, ठीक है। शूटर गगन नारंग, the 2012 Olympic Games men's 10-meter air rifle bronze medalist, has been chosen to replace MC Mary Kom as the chief dimension of the Indian Olympic contingent for the 2024 Olympics beginning on July 26. So, Olympic bronze medalist Mr. Gagan Narang has been appointed as chef de mission of इंडियन कंटिजेंट फॉर 2024 पेरिस ओलंपिक्स। पहले ये जो पोजीशन था शेफ डे मिशन का, ये किसके पास था? मैरी कॉम का था। बट मैरी कॉम को अब कौन रिप्लेस कर रहा है? मैरी कॉम को रिप्लेस कर रहे हैं मिस्टर गगन नारंग, हु इज अ ब्रॉन्ज मेडलिस्ट। ही इज अ ब्रॉन्ज मेडलिस्ट at 2012 Olympic Games. Now, moving on to the next important news headline for the day. So yeah, with this we have completed the news analysis of with this we have completed the news analysis of 9th of July 2024. प्लीज आज का न्यूज एनालिसिस बहुत ध्यान से आप लोग देखिएगा। आज काफी सारे इंपॉर्टेंट इवेंट्स थे कवर करने के लिए। सो थैंक यू सो मच फॉर वॉचिंग दिस वीडियोस। अगर आप लोगों का कोई डाउट होता है देन डू पंच इन योर क्वेश्चंस इन द कमेंट सेक्शन एज वेल, एंड डू सब्सक्राइब आवर सक्सेस मंत्रा डिजिटल चैनल। थैंक यू सो मच फॉर वॉचिंग दिस वीडियो। थैंक यू।